Good morning, it's Michael Gray with rnhealthcoaching.com. The following excerpt is going to be a part of my 4x4x48 David Goggins challenge. Basically, it's 4 miles every 4 hours times 48 hours. I started this on 4 p.m. on Good Friday and I ended on Easter Sunday 2020. If you can't do 4 miles, then you do 40 minutes or more of some type of exertional activity, whatever it is that you feel that you can tolerate for that amount of time every 4 hours. And it's actually quite challenging. One of my other biggest influencers is Lex Fridman, who is an MIT physicist and has the podcast AI podcast, which is artificial intelligence. And he took this challenge from David Goggins, as well as in between each of the iterations, he did a gratitude journal. So basically, that's what I did is on between each 4 hour interval, I did some sort of a distinct gratitude and made a video on it. So I have the full video, which is quite lengthy, and then I also have these excerpt videos between each one, which is what the following is. And thank you. Have a good day, and mend yourself, move, educate, nourish, decompress, and enjoy this lockdown. All right, Michael, this is round 2 here. The gratitude reflection on this is relationships. It's 8 p.m. on Friday. I just did round 1 at 4 p.m. and that was on physical. Just as a side note, I was thinking after I did my first one, and like I said, I had a long day today, so I kind of started off this in a 24-hour fast, and a little depleted with energy and the oomph, and I actually feel much better now on this second one. The first one was kind of difficult, and had it not been for social influence and me kind of telling people that I was going to do this and posting it on Facebook, the average Joe may have changed his mind, but I'm a little bit crazy like that, and that's why I put myself in these positions. I read this book called The Influencer a long time. There's a couple of influencer books. This is the one that has the with the green writing. I think maybe like a green apple on it. Exceptional book. I highly recommend it. But I was thinking about when you do these difficult things physically and emotionally, you don't know what the breaking point, where it's going to be. If you've always had a soft existence without a lot of recent stress, struggle, or discomfort, or having had that at all, at least in your adulthood, so you don't necessarily know what it is that you can tolerate, what it is that you can't tolerate, and where the trouble is first going to present itself. And for me, it was in my middle back, just after that first, I guess, iteration, the first 4 miles, when I was done, and I did, I think, like 3.5 miles, probably about a week ago, in the same location around my driveway. And my back was hurting, and same thing today. So it's just like, why is the middle of my back hurting? And probably it's because of my posture. Very likely it's because of my chronically bad posture. When I was a poker dealer, I was sitting at a table, and I was always like stretching here, stretching there, grabbing the chips. You have the deck of cards, so you're dealing the cards, and you have all of this tension. So you have this anterior head syndrome, and you have all of this tension in your neck going straight down, and also like weak pelvic because of your legs being like this. Well, this is almost the same position that you are when you're driving. It's the same thing with your head forward, and it's really hard to get into like that good neck, your head over your shoulders position while you're driving. It's because even while you do that, if you were to push your seat all the way forward, now you're going to have an issue where you're even more compressed at the pelvis. So you're going to have tight hamstrings, And if you have plantar fasciitis, a lot of times that is because of chronic sitting, chronic anterior head syndrome, and just the the lack of flexibility in your lower back and through your glutes and your hamstrings. It You feel the pain initially in the bottom of your feet, and that's kind of what I'm feeling. So what I did was I got into the bathtub and I did stretching, and I did kind of like a almost like a lymphatic massage, and try to, if it's an issue of lactic acid, I want to try and get the circulatory system with the hot water and the vasodilation, and just trying to get things moving as well as relaxed to decrease the chance that I'm going to have plantar issues or hamstring issues or even the middle of the back. So for me, we can say that the first point of failure or weakness was my middle back, and I can kind of pinpoint that to those things. But that doesn't mean that you should quit because you're having discomfort or pain or even failures in certain points. So we can say like my mid back might be failing me or testing me right now, and it's not my back's fault. It's my fault for the position that I put myself in. I asked my wife, well, what do you think that, how could we correct that? And she was like, well, you can do this, this, or this. And I'm like, well, that's going to take months to do that, or that. I said, I think what I need to do to correct it is to go run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And that's what I'm doing. So, but when I used to go on these long hikes up into the mountains and challenge myself that way, it was often that the physical body fails before the mental. But then you get to a point where, like David Goggins or like Navy SEALs, you get to a point to where you just break past those barriers of physical pain and physical discomfort, and you just don't accept that as a reason to stop, and you keep going, and then you run into mental barriers, and then you keep going. So for instance, the first 4 miles when I was running around like a hamster around my driveway, I found myself thinking about, well, when I'm done, I'm going to go inside and get something to eat. I'm going to go get some chips and queso. I'm going to go make a ham sandwich or whatever it is. I was thinking, and then I instantly reminded myself that, oh yeah, you're fasting for 72 hours. And every time I thought about it, it caused like a little bit of internal struggle. But the more times that happened over that first hour of me traversing my driveway, the more times that it happened, the easier that it got. Like, it's taken a while for my brain to realize, oh yeah, you haven't eaten in 28 hours and you're doing this challenge for the next 48 hours and you're not getting anything to eat. Welcome to your future, sir. And I think that the more times that happens, the easier that it gets. And there are a couple reasons for that. One, I believe, is as your stomach empties, there's like endocrine markers like a ghrelin that's excreted by maybe by your pancreas and triggered by your hepatic system, and also triggers in your stomach that's telling you that you're hungry. It's telling your brain that you're hungry. But you don't have to listen to that story. You just can maybe pretend that you're two people. You're one person that's telling that one story of you're hungry, you're going to go do this, you wish you had that, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the other one that is the person that's on this 48-hour challenge. And you just have to let that person be a little bit louder than the other one. So this is part of the process of doing these kind of uncomfortable things. Be like, well, why are you doing it? It's because I'm strengthening the voice of the person that I most want to follow inside of me. So if we have two people inside of ourselves, and or two stories, or two voices. Um, I'm doing this to strengthen the voice of the more rational, logical, goal-based versus the one that is trying to be comfortable, that's trying to self-soothe, that's trying to not necessarily sabotage, but it's just it's just weak and easier to sometimes to just fill our stomachs up and to feel that sense of fullness rather than the sense of emptiness. And once you are empty enough times for a long enough time, then you actually start to crave the feeling that you feel when you're fasted. And I know that all of this is kind of off topic to uh, the gratitude of relationships, but I wanted to speak on that because it's important, and it was on the forefront of my mind. Uh, okay, so now let's get into relationships. So what I consider relationships is uh, somebody that you have enough love and respect for, that if there was a car coming down the road and you can push them out of the way and take the hit, you would. So basically, this is going to be your family, your siblings, your close friend, your spouse, your children, your stepchildren, these types of people. You know, for me, that expands to my in-laws. Uh, I have a lot of. I'm fortunate that I have a lot of people that I have love for, and that have love for me. And even if you ask yourself the question, would this person do the same for me? Is it reciprocal? It doesn't matter if it is. What matters is the love and connection. That it's nice if both people have the same, but it's very seldom that both people have the same amount of love. And that reminds me of something that I've heard before, where the person that has the power in the relationship is the person that cares less. And I'll give you an example of my relationship with my wife. And she and I are both nurses. And right now there's this coronavirus. And I feel we live in Mississippi, but I feel compelled to go help the people in New Orleans at the convention center. For a couple of reasons. One is because during Hurricane Katrina, as I was in Memphis as a nurse there in the ICU, and we all watched the suffering in New Orleans and the fact that we couldn't get in, we couldn't get out. There was no water, there was no air conditioning, it was hot, there was no health care, there was no food, and there was crime and just a lot of chaos. And we all felt, or especially the people that are from there, felt uh, impotent, felt like we wanted to assist in some way, but we couldn't. And we wouldn't even have known how to. Just put me in a position and tell me where you need me to be. But I'm a professional nurse, and they may have been able to use me in some regard, but not like it is now during this coronavirus. Right now, in New Orleans, it's not as hard hit yet as New York, but it's fairly bad because of Mardi Gras just passed, and there's a high incidence of corona positive people and corona deaths, and they're making a makeshift hospital at the convention center, which is the same place that was in Katrina. And I feel compelled to go there and to help those people, as well as I have some debt, as you can see in this house. This isn't a house that I own. This is a house that the bank owns, that I'm paying them some money every month, and at some point somebody else will live here. You know, I kind of feel like we don't own anything. We're just basically renting or have a loan out on everything, even if we say that we own it. Even if our name is on the deed, doesn't necessarily mean that we own it. We could lose it. It could be taken away at any time. But basically, I felt like I wanted to go to New Orleans, and she knew this. We talked about it. I even, briefly we spoke about both of us going. And so I decided to give my 30-day notice at my place of employment so that I'd be rehireable after this chaos was over. And I didn't tell my wife prior to me giving that notice because I already knew how she felt about it, but I also knew that I didn't want her to have to try and dissuade me. Uh, I figured it would be easier for her if I just told her that I did it. And, it's an hour and a half from here. She'd have access to me if she needed me, or vice versa. Uh, but it was a good opportunity for me to uh, go function in that role, in assisting role of where I'm from, as well as to go make some money and to try and get out of some of this debt that I might have been able to make a big chunk in, maybe even completely exhaust the debt if I was there for maybe just 3 or 4 months. So it's a good opportunity. And when she got home that Friday and I told her I gave my notice, she was very upset, but more anxious and concerned for my well-being, and concerned for the the solid relationship that we have, and the fact that despite the chaos of our jobs right now, even here in Mississippi, and the difficulty of my job and the difficulty of her job, her argument or her statement was that our home is safe, stable, calm, content, simple, stronger. And these goals can be met with us here together collectively, and are going to be compromised or at least put on hold and stretched if I'm away. And she didn't want to see that. So we discussed it, and we talked about it on Saturday, and we talked about it on Saturday night. And so after about 24 hours of her with puffy eyes from crying, asking me to please not go, uh, I decided that even though I put all of this thought, and I know that financially that it would be beneficial, I'm not willing to risk the relationship. I'm not willing to put her through the struggle in order to meet these financial goals, or even the goals of me trying to help New Orleans, if it's going to possibly in any way compromise the integrity or the strength of our relationship. I don't want her to feel like I'm abandoning her, and I know that not every spouse would feel this way, but the spouse that I have does. So just because I don't necessarily feel that way, and I can use logic and rationalization and math, doesn't mean that she's that type of person. She's an emotional person, and she's a person that needs that connection. Not that I don't, but at a different level than me, and I need to understand that of her. So when we're talking about relationships, we have to have an understanding of not only of ourselves and what our goals are and what kind of person we are. We also have to understand the person that we're connected to and the people that we're connected to, and how we affect those people and how those people affect us. So basically, that's what I'm thinking about right now on this 4 miles of relationship gratitude. And I do have a lot of gratitude and appreciation for all of the love that I have in my life, and the people that also appreciate me. One other thing, and this is something that was established long ago with my parents, my mom and my dad, and you move away as a young person, and there's no definition of what the role is going to be from child living in the home to young adult to middle-aged adult outside of the home. And there was a period of time where I tried to stay connected to my family, but I kind of felt like that wasn't reciprocated. So there was a period where instead of me calling my mom and calling my dad on a regular basis, I just went for a while without calling them. Not in a hateful or spiteful or way of punishment, but just in a way of let's see how long it is before they call me back. And uh, with my dad, I want to say it might have been a couple of months. It might have been 2 months, let's say. It wasn't exceptionally long, but it was a brief moment in time. And I remember answering the phone, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I just haven't talked to you in a while." And I said, "Uh-huh." I said, "The reason you haven't talked to me in a while," and I kind of explained that to him. I said, "Now, I'm not trying to train you into I call you once and you call me once and I call you, and back and forth." I said, "It doesn't have to be like that, but I just want you to know that every now and then it it makes me feel good if you pick up the phone and you call me." And so we kind of went through the same thing with my mother. It didn't take quite as long for my mom to call me as it did for my dad. But that was so if you're feeling internally that you would like for somebody to treat you differently, then there are different ways that you can communicate that to them. And I don't suggest that that's the best way. That's just one way. I think usually just sitting down in a neutral environment and looking someone in their eyes and having this conversation with them. And you can even preface, "Hey, look, this is a conversation that I like to have if you've got time. Uh, it's not anything bad. It's just something that's important to me, and you're important to me. And I'd like to see if there's any way that we can maybe figure out a way to strengthen our relationship, and there's just some things I want to talk to you about. Is that okay?" Ask their permission. Um, so these are just some things off the top of my head for relationships, and I hope that this information helps in some way. All right, thank you. I'm gonna go finish here.